Because the Bible app is trying to distract you from getting what you need from the Lord. So today, we're going to do Psalm 3. You guys online got Psalm 3? You can take it and type it into your Bible app. And this one is the security of God's protection. So when you want to have that security and knowing that God is protecting you, this is going to be a good psalm to read. This is a time when a psalm that David wrote when he had to flee from his son Absolam. You know, David's own son was going to kill him. He was after him and chase him away because David allowed something to happen to his sister. Now, do you know why David had so many issues? David came together with Bathsheba, but in order for him to come together with Bathsheba, he had to lie, date somebody else's wife, and murder somebody. That's how he got together with Bathsheba. So, yes.
Is it still verse
3.
She said
It's a whole chapter of 3. Whole chapter of 3. So what ended up happening is he ended up, God told him, because you did this, although I love you and I forgive you, I need to see you guys on screen. Although I love you and I forgive you, the sword is never going to leave your house. So that no matter what, there's always going to be conflict in your house. Between you and your kids, between everybody. Because even though I've forgiven you, you did all of this. You looked at that man's wife. You brought her over. You did all this stuff. And then to cover up your lie, you had him killed. You know how you had the guy killed? The guy was a general. His name was Uriah. Let me tell you how King David was. Ruthless. Uriah was out at war, and David should have been out at war. David was at home. He saw Bathsheba, which was Uriah's wife. So Uriah was out at war, and he got Uriah's wife pregnant. So he told, yes. So David sent and told him, I need Uriah to come home. So Uriah came home. What do you need, my king? And he says, oh, go have fun with your wife. Uriah was like, no, king. He said, because we're at war. That'll cause me to lose focus. And my other people out there are fighting. They're not enjoying themselves, so why should I? David said, go sleep in your own house. Uriah was like, no. Those men are out there at war sleeping outside.
I remember this song.
They're sleeping outside.
Oh, I remember this.
So he said, I'm not going to do it. So David said, okay, you can go back to war, but here's a letter. Take this to the general. Uriah was so loyal to King David that he did not read the letter. When the general got the letter says, put Uriah in the front of war and have him killed. That's what the letter read.
Damn.
Had Uriah read the letter, he probably wouldn't have taken it. But he was so loyal to the king, he handed his own death sentence. So Nathan, who was a prophet, came to David, and he said, there was a man, he telling David a story, that took so-and-so's vineyard and blah, 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 and everything. What would you do? And David was like, oh, I would do this, and this. Nathan said, he's you. God knows you did it. He knows you did it. And he said, because of that, the sword will never leave your house. He said, but more than anything, you'll never build the temple of God, but your children will. So God was like, although I love you, you're a murderer, You're a liar. You're a cheater. And even though I love you. And let me tell you what happened. You remember that baby that she got pregnant with? That baby died in 7 days. As soon as the baby was born. So David went through all of that, getting that lady pregnant. She carried that baby all that time, Bathsheba. And as soon as the baby was born, the baby was sick. So David prayed for 7 days. He went to an altar and prayed for 7 days. And somebody tapped him on the shoulder. He said, I already know the baby's dead. Because God was like, no. God said, although I love you, you got to pay for this. He said, and the pain is, you will not build my temple, and you will always have conflict in your house. So this psalm, his own son is after him to kill him because his daughter was taken advantage of and David didn't do anything about it. So his son wanted his kingdom. I want my daddy's kingdom. I'm going to overthrow him and take over the kingdom. That was Absolam. Do you know what happened to Absolam? Absalom was, David was real good looking. So his kids were good looking. So Absalom was real good looking. He had real long hair. So one day, he was on his way to get ready to get David. He walked on riding on his horse. He goes past a branch on a tree. His hair got tangled, but it just so happens to be one of David's men put a bow and arrow in him. Put an arrow in him and killed him. And David was so hurt. But Absalom was on his way to kill him. But he was still hurt. Why was he hurt? Why was he hurt?
Because that was his son.
That was his son.
Exactly.
No matter what, that's his child.
Exactly.
It's like no matter what, that's my child. I know he can ready to come and kill me. He's going to come kill me. Yeah, this story is talking about when David fled and hid. Because Absalom was on his trail. He's like, I'm about to break him off. I'm about to kill my daddy and take over his kingdom.
That's good.
Because he was mad because David allowed an abuse to take place in his house against one of his children. And he did nothing about it. So Absalom was like, he's not fit to run the kingdom. So therefore, since he's not fit to run the kingdom, I'm going to take it over. But I'm going to break him off. And David got word and went and hid. So, this is a psalm that David wrote. Yes.
Is he the guy that defeated that giant?
Yes. David and Goliath, yes. He was young. He was young. And so we're going to talk about David a lot. And when we're reading the Psalms, we're going to talk about David a lot. Because he wrote, what'd you say?
This is almost like that one story in the Bible where I forgot his name, but he went to God and God told him what he was like supposed to do, like what he was made for his purpose. And then after that, he went to a witch.
Oh yeah, that was Saul. Saul, when God told him, when Samuel came to him and told him that God has chosen David as king, and you will no longer be king. And he went to the witch of Endor. And it's like, no, you cannot tell me that I'm not going to be king. And what it was, Saul was the people's choice. David was God's choice. But what happened with Saul? Saul was, he wanted to please what the people wanted. And Samuel had anointed him. So it was so hard for Samuel to come to him and have to tell him that God don't want you no more. It's over. He has chosen another king. So he was just angry. So angry that, but even while he was still king, David was serving him. David was being trained. And David, because with Saul, he was so vexed that's when, if you read these songs here, David would be playing the harp and singing these to Saul to soothe him. Because music soothed him. Nothing else soothed him. He was so angry with David. And one day David was playing his harp, singing a song, and all of a sudden here comes a javelin. It missed him. Saul just hated him. So what he did, Samuel had died. And what he did is he was like, you know what? I'm going to go and see why David is going to be king and how can I stay king. So he went to a witch, and the witch identified, you're the king. And Samuel, in a familiar spirit, because the dead does not come back, in a familiar spirit said, no. You were never supposed to conjure me. You were never supposed to. Because number one, I'm not Samuel anyway. I'm a familiar spirit. I'm not even really Samuel. But I'm going to tell you what you think you need to know. And then he said, but because you did this, you and your children are going to die. And they all died.
That's a familiar spirit.
You don't conjure familiar spirits. Yeah, you don't go to psychics. You don't go to people like that. You don't go to people that seances, things like that. They're conjuring familiar spirits. Familiar spirits, once the dead crosses over, they don't come back. They don't come back. But it's something familiar in your bloodline that shows up. They know your bloodline. Do you know, even to this day, familiar spirits are assigned to your bloodline. They know everything in your bloodline. So say, for instance, if there's alcoholism runs in your family, all of a sudden, and you know it. You saw your granddaddy drink, your grandmama drink. You saw everybody drinking. You're like, I'm not going to drink. But that familiar spirit is in your bloodline waiting. It already knows that you're not going to do it. So what it does is like, I'm going to drink. And then all of a sudden, you go to a college party and they offer you a drink. No, I don't want any, you already know. But it sets the scene. It knows exactly what it can do to weaken you for you to take that drink. And then once you take that drink, now you become a part of that family. But you're going to find out that you're going to resist that over and over. It's going to always come up in your face. So you may not be a person that is enticed by money. You could care less about being enticed by money. So the enemy is not going to use that to do it unless it's going to lead you to drinking. He's only going to use anything that's going to lead you to whatever that familiar spirit is. But they're going to wait till the opportune time and use it. Because everybody has a weakness in their family. Do you know your family weakness? You look in the families where we had in ours, where people don't get married at a certain time, where people have babies out of wedlock, or there's certain weaknesses in our family. You'll know what they look like. If they drink a lot. And so what it is once you resist that temptation gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And if it misses, and what it'll do, let me tell you what it'll do to you. It will actually introduce hardship or particular things that will lead you to it. And so each generation makes it worse. So where this generation, they may have drank, and what it is, it's not necessarily alcohol, it's addictions. So they were addicted to alcohol. So what they may do is now, but then you still don't take the drink, right? Somebody may decide, you get into a car accident, and they put you on heavy medications, like a narcotic or something, which is addicting. Before you know it, now you're using that. And then somebody tells you, well, you know, in order for me to get through my situation just like this, take and drink a little bit of whiskey with that. It'll help you get to sleep. Before you know it, it has introduced it in your bloodline. And now, you are now up under that very thing.
And with addiction, it's like the addiction is not the thing that gets you addicted. It's like the feeling that gets you addicted.
Yeah. It's all about feeling. You're looking for something. It's the feeling.
Yeah.
You're looking for something. So what you do, so that's how the whole thing. Now, when you look up with David, listen to David. You remember David, right? Do you know who David's son was? Solomon.
Oh,
Solomon was David's son.
I remember.
He had 700 wives. 300 concubines, which is like side chicks.
Oh my.
Bunch of baby mamas. Let me tell you how they found out that he was dead.
David?
No. Solomon. Was it Solomon or was it David? Solomon. I think it was Solomon. They threw a woman in the bed with him and she didn't touch him. He didn't touch him. It said the king is dead. I mean, it said Solomon's dead. That's how, because he was like a old little nasty old man. Still kicking it.
Oh, heck no.
But he had 700 wives and 300 concubines.
Yeah,
But check this out. His daddy fell for Bathsheba, right? The only woman that Solomon wanted was from Ethiopia, and her name was Sheba. Sheba.
Oh,
She's a black queen. She had her own money. She had her own stuff. Sheba, the queen of Sheba. The queen who Solomon.
That's right.
Solomon. So what happened is she heard about him and all kinds of stuff, and she ended up having a baby with him. She wanted an heir that would take over her kingdom, and they said that even her son was just as good looking as David was. She wanted a baby by him, her son was just as good looking as Solomon was. And do you know what made him go crazy? He couldn't have her. He could not have her. He could not have her. She was like, listen, I got my own people. You got your own people.
Let me do me.
And your people are not going to like me. And I need to go back to my own people. And he had 1,000 women that he had a choice of and didn't want none of them. He wanted one. And that was the thing. And this is the thing. It drove him crazy. But because of the sin that his daddy committed, it ran through his bloodline. So that's what ended up taking place. So let's go ahead and read this psalm here. And then we're going to go into it. So now this is David running from his son. Hiding from his son. Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. So he's like, Lord, they increase it. It started out with 1, now it's 10. Man, every time you look up, I'm in trouble. So now you got a whole posse about to take over my kingdom. Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. Selah. So he's like, they saying, he ain't finna get no help from God now. Because he done messed up. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory and the lifter of my head. God, I'm going to trust you to lift my head up. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill, Selah. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. Just a second. Enough. He said, I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. That no matter what, even though I'm running, I laid down, but I was able to wake up the next morning, not dead. Because he can't wake up dead, but because God has sustained him through the night. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. No, I ain't going to be scared of these folks. Even though it's 10,000 of them, I ain't going to be scared of them.
Sound like this translation.
Yeah, say, arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for thou hast smitten all my enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Save me, O Lord. Look, you done dealt with all my enemies. Salvation belongeth unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people, Selah. So what ended up happening is, as David is crying out, he hears word that his son is dead. And his beautiful long locks got stuck in a tree. And that was as he was trying to get his hair out.
How did he get stuck in a tree?
His hair was so long, there was a tree branch.
Yeah.
It's almost like God allowed the angels to set it up.
No,
Like, okay, here he comes, this long hair, and there was a tree branch, and all of a sudden, and then because of them, you have to realize who they were. Their hair was not straight. It was coily. It was coily and really thick. And it was like dreadlocks because they were of African descent. They were of African descent. So what happened is it got caught in the tree limb. And that gave the opportunity for one of David's men to take him out.
Dang.
So that's how he died.
He didn't even get to fight.
He didn't even get to fight.
That's crazy.
And so that's the thing. But when David heard, he was like, well, that's still my child. So, so you start looking at those. So today, after we go on this 10-minute bathroom break, I want you to break down this. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to write our own psalm. We're going to write our own psalm. And I'll show you how to do it. Okay?
Okay.
All righty. So let's take a 10-minute bathroom break.